Look at that. Okay, can you hear me? Awesome. Brian, why are you the one on there? Okay, just do it this way. Hi, welcome everybody to the kickoff webinar for the FFY25 HUD CoC grant competition. We're going to be providing you with the best information we currently have. If anything changes, you'll receive that information via email or either a direct email or a MailChimp email. If you are not signed up to receive our email blasts, please go to our website and navigate to any of the footer pages where you can sign up to make sure you're on the list to receive any notifications of changes. I lost my bar. Brian, can you forward the slide?
You're sharing your screen, so I can't. But if you want me to share my screen, I'd be more than happy to.
There, it just popped up again. I don't know. Okay, we're good. Thank you. Okay, the overview and objectives for this. You're being displayed for some reason. The overview and objectives for this webinar is to provide resources to assist you as applicants to kind of talk about the HUD notice of funding opportunity and some of the verbiage that they use that may not be consistent, may not be things you hear on a regular basis. If you're only looking at these things once a year, it can be easy to forget how they reference things at HUD. We want to review the changes to the HUD NOFO, as Brian, there are a lot of them, and we want to make sure that you are aware of that. We'll review the local competition timeline. We'll talk about any technical assistance we're going to offer, and then if there's time, we'll have Q&A. Just a plug at this point, we are opening a new CoC membership process. So if you are on this webinar, you are eligible to be a CoC member. We ask that you go to our website, which will be linked here at the end, and click on the Take Action button at the top of the navigation bar and sign up to become an official member of the CoC of the Alaska Balance of States CoC. Here's the link to our website, as well as a link to the NOFO this year, and some information from on how to get in touch with our friends at ICA, which manage the they're the lead agency for the Alaska Homeless Management Information Center. No, system. Homeless Management Information System. The HUD CoC NOFO. What is a NOFO? So a Notice of Funding Opportunity. It used to be called a NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability. So if you ever hear anybody reference a NOFA, it's the same thing as a NOFO. And it just basically means it's a governmental grant that's available. In the CoC NOFO process, we've got a two-step community-wide application to support the programs in our continuum of care with the goal of ending homelessness. Okay, so what's a CoC? The continuum of care is a HUD-designated geographic area responsible for that area's homeless response system. There are more than 400 across the country. The Alaska Balance of State is also referenced as AK 501, and then Anchorage is AK 500. Alaska has two CoCs. We work together very cooperatively and collaboratively. The Alaska Balance of State CoC is the largest geographically in the entire country, and it encompasses space that's equivalent to California, Texas, and Montana combined. So you'll also see references to FFY, FY, SFY, and CY, and grant term. All of these things can be different, and in some instances are. That all has to do with a specific set of dates, though. The FFY is how we reference the federal fiscal year. When you're on governmental websites, when you're on HUD websites, they might just say FY because they assume all fiscal years are the federal year. But we designate it slightly differently so you know that we're talking about the federal fiscal year as opposed to a fiscal year, which is what your organization chooses as how they categorize expenses and budgets in a fiscal year that starts on a specific date and ends 365 days later. There's the state fiscal year, which runs June through July, I think. If I'm wrong, someone tell me. There's the calendar year that runs January to December. And then you'll also have a grant term, which is a 12-month set of time, which can be different than all of the above. So just, I know it's confusing, but just to try and keep you straight on who's referencing what. This year's HUD goals and national priorities include ending the crisis of homelessness on our streets, prioritizing treatment and recovery. Let's let folks in. Advancing public safety, promoting self-sufficiency, improving outcomes, and minimizing trauma. You can read more about all of these priorities, more explanations about the priorities on in the HUD NOFO, which there are many, many links to the HUD NOFO in this presentation, as well as on our website and in the applications themselves. So when we talk about lingo, the collaborative application is something that AKCH2 will put together as the collaborative applicant. We'll take the lead on writing, but we will be getting community-wide input as needed throughout this process. Our score on the collaborative application impacts the level of funding that our region will receive. And this year, more than ever, one of the ways it was explained to us is that if a project is ranked in the middle of tier 2 for an organization that scores well on the collaborative application, that project is more likely to be funded than a project that's ranked in at the top of tier 2 for an organization that doesn't score as high on their collaborative application. So convoluted, yes, we know, but it just underlines the fact that the collaborative application score is really important in order to get the most projects funded. The local project applications are what you'll be submitting. There will be renewal and new projects submitted by applicants to AKCH2. All of those applications will go through the rank and review process. We will rank based on scores and local priorities. And then those applications that are reviewed will be forwarded to the next stage in the competition. Youth Homeless Demonstration Project renewals and replacements will be allowed. They will be competing for funding with all other projects this year. This is a change. Previously, they were renewed non-competitively. This year, they will be ranked with all other applicants. You can file a renewal application or actually a replacement application if you will be revising and replacing. Once an application has been selected, applicants will then submit a second application to HUD in eSNAPs. We're checking eSNAPs multiple times a day. As soon as those applications become available in eSNAPs, we'll notify you. Our expectation is that the applications this year are going to be very different than they have been in past years. Brian, is this where you take over?
Brian's internet went out. He is resetting the modem, so this could be a good time to answer any questions that the group might have, Helen.
We're going to hold questions until the end. So since Brian is not here, I will continue to, I'll just continue. So eligible applicant thresholds. The same types of applicants are eligible this year. To apply. So you have to be a 501c3, a city or state government, or a tribe or a tribally designated housing entity in order to apply. You have to, and there might be, we know that they're asking for 501c3 eligibility documentation. We don't know as of right now whether or not there are other forms of documentation that will be required for the other types of eligible entities. You'll need to demonstrate financial and management capacity and experience. The population you're going to be served needs to meet certain eligibility requirements, and that population needs to be located in the Alaska Balance of State CoC, which means everywhere except for the municipality of Anchorage. We need a commitment from you to use the Alaska Homeless Management Information System, or AKHMIS, coordinated entry community-wide prioritization lists for referrals, and new this year, participant service requirement agreements will be required. If applicable, HUD may review the organization's past performance or past project applications. Hey, Owen, can you let Brian know that he can just jump in anytime he comes back?
He texted and said that if we get to the stage that he is supposed to present, that Helen will have to do it for him until he can get internet. So you are doing the thing.
So I am doing the thing. Awesome. Target populations, the HUD categories of homelessness that are eligible for being served in HUD projects are the same this year as they have been in previous years. Category 1 for literally homeless individuals, Category 2 at imminent risk of homelessness, and Category 4 fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, and human trafficking. When we send these slides out, if you click on the link up here for categories of homelessness, you'll find the actual regulation on the HUD website. Eligible project types in this year's competition are transitional housing, supportive services only standalone projects, supportive services only street outreach projects. These are the 3 that are being prioritized by HUD, and these are the 3 that will be available for new project applications. Renewals of permanent housing are also available. That's our permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and transitional housing, rapid rehousing combination project types. But permanent housing this year can only account for 30% of each CoC's annual renewal demand. What that means functionally for the Alaska Balance of State CoC is that 30% of our ARD, or annual renewal demand, is equivalent to $693,509. So we can only submit this much for permanent housing projects. The reality is, in our current portfolio of grants, CoC grants, our permanent housing projects are equivalent to $1,357,008. So if you subtract what we're allowed to have from what we currently have, that tells you how many of our existing permanent housing projects are going to need to transition or replace to alternative project types. For an HMIS grant application, only the HMIS lead agency is eligible. HMIS is a budget line item in all of these others. So if you're currently or will wish to have support for your participation in the Homeless Management Information System in these projects, you can do that, but you can't apply for an HMIS CoC grant. Only ICA is eligible to do that. So what's the same this year? The cost of living and fair market rent adjustments will be made again at grant agreement, which means that the operational and supportive services line items will be increased along with fair market rent. And because of the timing of this competition, the fair market rent for 2026 or 2027 will be the fair market rent that's used. So it'll be forwarded. It won't be this last year's, it'll be the next year's. DV and YHDP projects can only be reallocated to projects serving the same populations. This is something that happened last year. So basically it protects the domestic violence bonus projects and the youth homelessness demonstration projects so that that money can still only be used to serve those same subpopulations. There are VAWA eligible expenditures in each budget line, in each budget. That's the Violence Against Women's Act. This was instituted last year. There are rural eligible expenditures. All of AK 501, all of our CoC qualifies for these rural expenditures. Eligible activities paid for under these costs may be included in new project applications, added to eligible renewal projects through expansion, or can be part of a renewal application that already has rural expenditure amounts in a budget line item. So basically a renewal project that doesn't have money in the rural expenditures budget cannot add it. But if you file a new project expansion or a new project application, you can add rural expenditure budget line item amounts, which it's confusing, I know, and I apologize. These expenditures will pay for short-term emergency lodging, repairs to units, and staff training, professional development, skill development, and staff retention. You can make budget line item adjustments as long as those adjustments are less than 10% of the budget line item that the money is being moved from. This is the same as last year. So you can tweak the amounts in your budget a little bit without having to actually go through the amendment process. And YHDP projects and the leasing budget line item do not require a 25% match. These are the same as last year. What's new? CoCs must rank all project applications, and this includes CoC bonus projects, DV bonus projects, CoC renewals, new CoC reallocation, new DV reallocation, and YHDP renewal and YHDP reallocation projects. So the big difference here, really, is that YHDP will not be non-competitively renewed this year. YHDP projects will be ranked and scored and competing with all other projects. The HUD is requiring a code of conduct. HUD is requiring a code of conduct be on file with HUD, either submitted to HUD prior to submitting your application or attached to your application in eSnaps. As of right now, the e-library has only been updated through September of 2024. So if you have sent an updated organizational code of conduct to askgmo@hud.gov during this last calendar year, it may or may not be included in what HUD is looking at. So if you haven't sent an updated one and aren't on the list, then we'll send you a template. We have a template of how you can fill out an organizational code of conduct that's acceptable to HUD. And then we highly recommend that you attach it to your application. If you filed a code of conduct a while ago, please be aware of the fact that codes of conduct have to be updated every 7 years. So if your code of conduct was filed with HUD 2018 or earlier, you need to have an updated one attached to your eSnaps. Tier 1 this year, previously Tier 1 has been anywhere from 90 to 95% of equivalent to our annual renewal demand. And then Tier 2 has been the rest of that. This year, Tier 1 is 30% of our annual renewal demand, which means that about $693,000 is categorized as relatively safe funding, whereas everything else is going to be very competitive. It changes the scope of the way the competition is going to be run and the reliability of projects to continue to receive funding. It also underscores the fact that it's even more important that our collaborative application has a good score so that we can do everything we can to make sure that as many projects as possible that are ranked in Tier 2 get funded. HUD projects are now going to be required to have service participation agreements with their participants. So previously, best practices in Housing First indicated that services should be available but not required. Starting with this HUD NOFO, that recommendation is going to be rescinded, and all participants in housing programs will be required to participate in services as a part of their participation in the program. We are working on a template for those organizations that don't have service participation agreements, which we imagine are most of our renewals, and many of our new projects may not have those planned either. So we're going to do what we can to make it easy for you to be able to meet this requirement. And then, as mentioned earlier, they're asking for 501c3 documentation. Many of you have probably already sent that in. At some time in the past, we've asked a question whether or not those who have already sent it in are also required to submit it again this year. We have not yet received an answer, so the safest answer is to make sure that everyone attaches their 501c3 documentation to their eSnaps application. So in previous years, we were talking about the importance of system performance measures, and those are becoming more important than ever. The renewal applications have a number of points that are attached to your project's performance as it applies to your system performance measures. You'll see that those are also important again this year. As a matter of fact, HUD has increased the percentage of points that must be related to a certain subset of system performance measures in the way that we score project applications. The way that we score project applications is one of the ways that we can earn points on our collaborative application. So we have to have 25% of our available points linked to this subset of SPMs. And then we also get additional points if supportive service participation requirements have, if our projects have service participation requirements, and we need to have 50% of our points connected to objective criteria instead of subjective criteria. The way that you'll see that play out in the applications is that as of now, there are only 2 narrative questions, as opposed to last year, there were 6 narrative questions. So the narrative section of those applications will be easier for you to complete this year than they have been in the past. HUD will prioritize funding for CoCs that have demonstrated the capacity to reallocate funding from lower to higher performing projects. So basically, we need to be able to prove to HUD, as we have in previous years, that we pay attention to how the projects perform when we decide how we're going to assign points in our competition and how we're going to rank projects. So the exciting part of this competition is that there are higher amounts available for CoC bonus projects and for domestic violence bonus projects this year than there ever have been before. So as you can see, with these two combined, that's almost $700,000 available potentially for new projects that in funding that we could bring to the balance of state in Alaska. The tier 1 amount, the safe amount, is the 30%, and we talked about this earlier. Tier 2 amount is basically tier 1, our total annual renewal demand, plus CoC bonus, plus domestic violence bonus, minus tier 1. So it's math. But we will have over $2.3 million available in tier 2. So the total potential funds for projects that we could have for Alaska is over $3 million. It'll be the first time that we could be over the $3 million amount. We will have to decrease permanent housing project funding by $663,499. The CoC planning grant is not ranked. It is not scored. It does have to be submitted in eSnaps. It is not included in these totals. That's system money used to allow us to continue operating the continuum of care as the lead agency. So the things that HUD is going to be looking at when they decide who gets funding and how much of this our CoC will get will be project level criteria. There will be a quality evaluation, a threshold evaluation, and a risk assessment. The project's ranking within the CoC, so the priority list that we submit and the funding recommendations. How many of the CoC's project require supportive services? This is going to be something that it's assigned 10 points, a maximum of 10 points in our collaborative application, which is a relatively high number of points assigned to one objective criteria. And then the CoC's merit score, which the collaborative application score is now being called the merit score. What's new in YHDP? YHDP grants will be renewed competitively, which means they'll be ranked against all other applications. YHDP renewals and replacements are not required to provide a 25% match, but there is a requirement that they show that they can demonstrate that they've tried to work with other funding sources and other partners. So there's a specific section in YHDP or in the NOFO about YHDP, and we strongly recommend that all YHDP grantees look through that section. There are YHDP special activities that are options that aren't available in regular CoC projects. Your budgets can be adjusted, so carefully review that information in the NOFO, and if you want to make big changes, please talk with us so that we can work through the process with you. You must submit a renewal application and answer all questions. You can submit, so while transition grants aren't available for YHDP, you can submit a replacement application, and that will be done using a new project application in the local competition. It allows you to change program types and make big budget changes In order to do this, though, you must receive a letter of support from our Youth Advisory Board, Youth Action Board, which means that we need to make sure we've started on that process as soon as possible. New projects. What new projects are available and how can that happen? So, new projects are available through transition grant applications or replacement grant applications. If the renewing recipient wishes to change their project type, a permanent housing to a transitional housing or supportive services only, you will be submitting a transition or replacement application, and you will do that by submitting a new project application in the local competition. We can reallocate funding, and that's where funding is taken from a less successful or non-compliant project and made available for new or expanded projects. So those new or expanded projects this year will only be allowed to be transitional housing, supportive services only standalone projects, or supportive services only street outreach projects. There's DV bonus available. That'll be used for new DV-specific project applications where 100% of the participants are or will be survivors of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. We'll be accepting DV bonus applications for transitional housing. If you're interested in potentially doing a DV bonus application for supportive services only standalone projects, we'll need to have a conversation about that and more closely review the NOFO because it's not super clear to us if that's going to be an option. This year, the CoC bonus new projects are available for 20% of our annual renewal demand. We will accept applications for transitional housing or the two supportive service only project types that have been referenced throughout this application. One more thing. A transition grant application allows you to wholly eliminate the project type you currently have, and over the course of 12 months, transition it into a different project type. Another option for an existing grantee to potentially shift a project type would be through reallocation, which would wholly eliminate the existing project at the end of the grant term and then start a new project type with a grant term that is established based on when the grant agreement is available. In order to more fully understand those implications, please reach out to AKCH2 to set up an appointment to have those individual conversations and discussions. So this is the standard NOFO workflow process, which hasn't really changed, okay? So there will be YHDP renewals and replacements. There we will receive renewal project applications, and we will receive new project applications, which include transition grant applications for bonus money or reallocated money. You're going to send all of those to AKCH2. We're going to have a rank and review committee that no AKCH2 staff are on, and they will review, score, and rank projects based on HUD priorities and local priorities. During that time frame, AKCH2 will be filling out a collaborative application and creating a priority listing. Projects that are selected through the rank and review process will be forwarded into submitting an application through the HUD portal in eSnaps. And then that all gets sent to HUD. We will walk you through this process step by step. Here's our timeline. And please be aware of the fact that this year we've got a 60-day timeline instead of a 90-day timeline, which we've had in the past. And our 60-day timeline happens right over the holiday seasons of Thanksgiving, the winter holidays, and New Year's. So the NOFO dropped on November 13th. We made the applications available on our website on Monday. So new project applications and renewal project applications are available. The local applications will be due to us on December 14th. According to HUD regulations in this NOFO, December 15th is the absolute last day we could have made them available. In order to make sure that we follow all the rules, we went just a day earlier. We know it's a Sunday. We apologize, but we wanted to give you every day we could. Rank and Review will look at those applications, score them, rank them. We will hold a meeting of the Board of Directors on the 18th or 19th of December. They have to approve the recommendations for funding. And then as soon as they do that, we will publish those funding recommendations on our website. Anyone who submitted an application will be notified about what happened with their application, whether it was accepted or denied, and if it was accepted, how it was scored and where it was ranked. eSNAP's entries for our projects will be due January 6th. There are always back and forth streamlining and narrowing and corrections that need to be made in eSNAP's project entries before they're actually submitted to HUD and as a part of our priority listing. So the entries will be due January 6th. Between the 6th and the 12th, we will be working with our partners to make sure everything is lined out the best it possibly can be in order for us to do as well on this competition as we can. Our goal for submitting the collaborative application and all project entry and project priority listings is January 12th. HUD's due date for eSNAPs is January 14th. We've selected 2 days prior to that because eSNAPs is known for crashing in the last 2 days of the CoC NOFO competition. So we want to make sure that we do not run afoul of that system. We'll be offering technical assistance. There's a link for the session here in this website. It's also available, or in this presentation, it's also available on the website. And Wednesday, December 3rd and Wednesday, December 10th from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. These technical assistance sessions will be for completing local program applications. If you don't want to ask your questions with everyone else, although that can be helpful for everybody, quite frankly, but if you want to set up a one-on-one appointment, please reach out to me and we can do that. And then we'll also be offering 3 eSNAPs technical assistance sessions. When we only get into eSNAPs once a year, it's really easy to forget the convoluted process that's required to navigate it. So on December 23rd and December 30th, yes, I understand those dates are bad, but December 23rd and December 30th, we'll be offering technical assistance for eSNAPs, as well as Tuesday, January 6th. Again, if you're in eSNAPs and you've run into a brick wall, please reach out to me. My cell phone number is included in the contact slide earlier. Text me. Quite often I can walk you through it in 2 minutes and you don't have to spend 6 hours trying to figure something out. And I am available for that. So thank you so very much for sticking with us through this entire process. At this point, I am going to stop recording.